which I think is a bigger problem than the weather.
Okay.
Because the altitude means there's some levels you cannot go beyond because the altitude is the altitude. You see when teams come to Kenya and guys struggle to breathe.
Yes.
So that also gives a bit of a problem. So maybe not too sure about the 208.
Yeah.
All I want is beautiful competition and a wonderful story at the end. The very first marathon we covered had a lady who was a mother of 4, travel from up in the Rift Valley,
that's wonderful.
come here and win, Chamokil Chilapong.
Yeah.
I really wish for a story like that again. I hope we find someone who this is their first marathon, their second marathon, and they get that to 10.
Fantastic, Okabi. Now let's hand it back to Manya and gold medalist Wilfred Bungei.
Okay, welcome back. And I think it's so good to see you guys there doing a lot of analysis, and James talking about when it started, where we just mentioned that, it started with few athletes before. Right now, we are talking about 30,000 athletes registered for the Standard Chartered. And as you can see in your screen, of course, 42 kilometers men. And something interesting, Manya, that I've been able to observe here, between the athletes in 1 to 10, there is a difference of less than a second. It's not like a minute, less than a second, all of them being there. Currently, they are running at 2:57 pace, which, of course, it has increased from what it was before, where we saw they were running at around 3 minutes per kilometer, and currently they have been able to go down to 2:57. And for the ladies as well, they're running at around 3:20, 3:23, 3:25 on average for all of them, and that's why we still have a huge pack, because the pace of 2:57 is kind of like, still comfortable for everyone, Manya.
That's right. So we're not really expecting any course records here today, unless something really radical happens in the second half of the race. I did mention that the course record for the women is held by Evelyn Cheer, and that's 2 hours, 24 minutes, 31. And Moses Keegan, and this was back in 2009, that's 2 hours, 10 minutes, 12 seconds, which is really, really, really fast at this altitude. We've had a few marathons run in Nairobi at sub 2:10, but that's really, really very, very exerting.
Yeah, and looking at, I think with the weather, Manya, it depends, of course, again, how they started, because when you have a race that most of these athletes, they are all packed together, hardly today be able to push. Probably, maybe if we had seen someone pushing before, we could easily say that maybe there was a possibility that, they could have a good time. However, it's going to be a negative slip, that is for sure. As we can all see, of course, these guys, they will have a little bit difficulty when they will be climbing after Southern Bypass, but of course, immediately after Langata Southern Bypass, that is when it is going to be a little bit, fast.
And we've just seen the men go through a mist station. The organizers really went above and beyond to make sure that they provide the most ideal conditions for these athletes. And that mist station really just the shower serves to cool them down.
Yeah, you would definitely have, especially for races that, would be otherwise very hot, you would be able to see a lot of such kind of mist stations whereby if they spray the athletes, because in any case, they need that cooling. Looks like the athlete who is currently the leader, that is Peter Bernard Chepkwony. I saw there he was struggling a little bit to be able to get the water, but couldn't be able to. And of course, what happens is that sometimes when you pass such, maybe you try and think that maybe there is the next one ahead. The beauty of it is, as I've said again before, we have a bigger number of water points that they can be able to catch there.
And we're just about to have a look at the 42-kilometer map. This will just give us an idea of the course and what the athletes are running.
Yeah, in this course, Manya, the start actually was, they started from Southern Bypass, and then, of course, they will go to Curl, College of Insurance, Emareli Ole Sereni, where they will be able to turn back, and you can see they will come back again to Uhuru Garden. That is where they will be able to finish their race. The start is at Uhuru Garden, and of course the finish near Uhuru Garden, and of course the finish will always be at Uhuru Garden inside. And the turning point will be at the ICT Business Park on the other side of the Southern Bypass, and the other turning point, of course, is Alliance Concrete, that is after Ngong Road. That is where they will be able to turn, interchange of the Ngong Road and Southern Bypass. That is where they will turn back, and of course it will be a downhill as they will turn. And I think that is when we will see the athletes who are very good in the downhill course making a decision maybe at that time to be able to push. And I think, as we can see, the women are still at not so far from National back there. Of course, coming back, and then they will be able to be in Langata interchange, and of course they will proceed with the Southern Bypass. Still, for the ladies, they have started again, to be able to spread currently.
So I remember listening to a briefing by the organizers, and they spoke about how, first and foremost, we have Tetra Pak packaged water, so water packaged in cartons, and that's just really to yet again become an even more sustainable race, because you do not want to use single-use plastic. So then they have that partnership with Tetra Pak. But for elite athletes, this is the thing: for their station, their water cartons are not going to be opened for them. So the recreational runners may get some assistance, they may get some juice, but for the elite athletes, they have to open the carton for themselves.
Yeah, remember that, this is a period that we are talking about doping in this country, and therefore you do not want to give any athlete to say that maybe my water was spiked because I found it was open. And that's why the organizers always advise that, you have to take the water that has not been open. And I think, no athlete would want to touch anything, because in the other case, you would be in trouble, and then you want to blame someone else, and you will have yourself to blame.
And speaking of doping, this is something that is that hits close to home. We've had an incredible issue, a massive problem with almost systemic doping in this country. So much so that last year's winner, Ronald Kurgat, was actually found to be doping, and therefore he stood on the podium in first position, but really it got pushed down, and now Dominic Kipkirui, who was in second position, and Peter Komwe in third position, came up. Also, there's been conversations about Ruth Chepngetich, the world record holder in the full marathon, who also happens to be Kenyan. It's not looking good for us, Wilfred.
Well, I will put it, Manya, this way, that, the doping issue is a big issue that I think, it needs the entire conversation, to be able to tackle, actually, to go deeper into the issue. But of course, it's so shameful. I've always said that, it's not good, because we are here, and everyone who is watching the marathon, they come and watch, they are cheering you, and it gets disappointed. Many people get disappointed when they realize that, you are just doping. But of course, we hope, and especially for 2025 Standard Chartered, we hope that everybody is clean. As we can watch all here, we can see the action, the changes that has happened in the front, for both men and women. We have seen the pacemakers still, especially for the women marathon, still really pushing and making sure that the pace is very even. For the front leaders in the 42 men, I think they are currently now almost, I would say, approaching to the halfway mark. Currently now, I think they must be going through the Langata bypass, should be approaching there, which it should be currently past almost halfway to the race. And all these
We're not yet halfway, Wilfred, but just about, indeed. And the lead pack has whittled down to about 10 strong now. We can still see Bernard Chepkemoi, Peter Kemoi, Calvin Kemboi, Leonard Mukung, the Ugandan, Wilfred Kiplagat, Michael Kipchumba Keino, as well, among the leading pack. the pace that they were running at is really 2:57 minutes per kilometer. And that, it seems to me like they have slowed down quite a bit so far.
Well, but if you look at, when they were starting, they were over 3 minutes. And I think still 2:57 is still a quick time. Should be able to be, with 2:57, I believe they should be able to do under 2:10. But of course, with this kind of weather, they wouldn't be able to. But you can never predict. It's so difficult sometimes, especially where it comes to a marathon for Kenyans. Sometimes it becomes so difficult to predict because any changes can happen, and you can see like the next half they could easily make it very quick and very, very fast, and you can still be able to get good times. But currently, of course, still pushing. I think they are already past Southern Bypass on the junction of the Langata.
In fact, this is now the pictures on our screen are of the 21-kilometer marathon, the half marathon warm-up. And this is really how it's done. This is the face of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Because as you know, the participants have increased from 7,569 back in 2024 to 9,504 today. It's a race that keeps on growing. It's the largest one-day athletics event in Kenya, and this is a really fun time. I was fortunate enough to be at the Marathon Village last year, and what happens is that there's a lot of music, a lot of vibes, which is really what they're pushing. Good vibes and high energy and a lot of fun.
Remember that, not being a professional athlete, it will not be very easy to really prepare if there is no fun to be able to experience, for example. And I think keep it to the organizers for such kind of thought that it should not only be about running, Manya, but also at the same time you go there, you have fun, you have got families runs, you have got corporate runs as well. And, it is always the best thing that you can be able to, because that way you will be able to talk about your experience during the stand chat. Now, I think
the athletes are actually around Kibera area. I hear people say nowadays Kibra, and those were images of the National Housing Corporation units. And I can almost guarantee that the majority of the people watching us are going to be in a place like Kibra. You can just imagine it's a slum. It's known to be a slum, but it's not quite always the most bleak of situations that you will find on the ground. It could be a place where you find the highest concentration of television sets.
Absolutely. And I think, even I know of this Langata Road, you would find so many people also. Sometimes they come and line up. And it's still very early in the morning right now. Probably most people, they haven't woken up. But, of course, I believe by the time they come back, because they will be coming back here almost another 30 minutes later on, you would be able to probably maybe have more people just there. As we can all see, currently, Manya, this is a kind of like an uphill. As you can see all these athletes, the way they run, it's like they are struggling a little bit because this is the most difficult and the only difficult part that you have in this course.
That's right. They're sort of bending forward to sort of find their center of gravity. So it's definitely a small uphill climb. In fact, it might be the toughest climb on the course. At this point, they're actually heading to 1,800 meters above sea level in terms of elevation, and it doesn't stop. They'll just have to keep climbing, and this is where the hill work training comes into play, how well they've done it.
Yeah, if you look at the entire uphill, Manya, is approximately almost 5 kilometers, the one that is a little bit, let's say it's around 3 kilometers, but the entire elevation is almost 5 kilometers. And as you can see already, and that's why earlier on, Manya, I had mentioned that when you see, once they go uphill, you will be able to see now maybe some changes in terms of the leading group. You won't be able to see a bigger group being there, because this is where it becomes tough for everyone. Of course, the athlete who has an advantage always are those ones who train probably in a terrain that gives you a chance to be able to experience during your training, uphill, downhill, because this one is one of the toughest. And I think most athletes, when you ask them what is the toughest point in Stanchart Marathon, and they will always tell you that, immediately you finish the Southern Bypass interchange at Langata Road, that becomes a little bit tough for them all the way. I think to Wild Beast Eco Camp, that is still a little bit tough.
Scholastica Jeb Kimbwe and Helen Chip Korir looking very, very strong. The lead pack has whittled down, and we're about 5 women in this pack, with Mina Stephen, I believe, serving as a pacer. And he's doing an excellent job, because what you've seen him do is even open the water packs for his athletes, hand it to them, and just ensure that they're good, they're still on track, signaling to encourage them to keep moving. How crucial is the role of a pacemaker for such a race?
Well, very important, because number one, they not only give you the pace at which you would like to run. For example, if you see, most of the time, these athletes, they have run around roughly 325 per kilometer consistently. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge as an individual athlete to be consistent on that. And pacemakers are always, I would always call them very special, very necessary in a race, and especially when you want to run a very good time, because they are able to understand the pace. Even without looking at their watches, they can be able to understand the pace. And I think, especially for these men who are pacing for the women marathon, they have done a lot of not only pacing, but making sure that, because they have a lot of energy, Manya, to go and just grab the water and then comes and give everyone and they share, so that at the end of the day, they can be able to conserve energy. Because of course it's tough, when you are doing a 42 kilometers, you have got to think about going to grab the water. So that is why at least these guys, they have been able to do very well. And as you rightly said, we still have 5 guys in the front.
In about 14 minutes, the 21-kilometer half marathon will be kicking off, and so what we saw were images of them assembling. But we also need to speak about the growth of the countries that you don't usually expect when you're talking about East African marathon greats, Uganda and Tanzania. Recently, in the World Championships, the champion was Alphonse Simbu from Tanzania. And you've seen people like Jacob Kiplimo doing very, very well in the Chicago Marathon. Do you think that this heralds a time when we are going to go to different countries still in East Africa to look for our next champions, our next Eliud Kipchoge?
Well, of course, I mean, the one thing that most people would always mention is that, and I've had these questions, Manya, people will say, hey, Wilfred, are we experiencing a problem? Other countries are coming up. But I think, the dominance of the Kenyan athletes is still way ahead compared to all the other East African countries, because always you would find maybe one athlete comes and then, they disappear. For a very long time, actually, Tanzania had never had big athletes, who are doing so well until recently during the Tokyo championships. And I think, for me, it was something good, especially for East Africa. At the end of the day, for us Kenyans, and I think we need to appreciate our athletes. Sometimes we beat them a lot when we don't get a lot of medals. But of course, it takes a lot of, I would say, dedication, a lot of hard work, for anyone to be able to manage and get a medal. So, but when another country, let's also celebrate. Remember, they are our own East Africans.
Very interesting images, Wilfred. If you were observing, there was a man not quite dressed in marathon gear running side by side with the women athletes, the women lead pack, and he seemed to have handed a bottle to one of the athletes, and I'm sure once I see the bib, I'll be able to tell who that is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most important thing that maybe we should be able to inform everyone is that you cannot give water to the athletes, especially when they are competing, other than the station water points that has been designated by the organizers. Any water in between is always illegal. of course, is not allowed. You can never know, of course, also what that water has, because what the organizers have, they want to be sure always that whatever they give you was the right water in terms of if it was.
Because earlier on we spoke about how each of these athletes, especially at the elite level, at the World Marathon Majors, they have certain formula concentrations of their electrolytes, and it looks to me like maybe the athlete had made private arrangements and had someone meet them at a certain point. Just to provide that, maybe just about halfway to provide that. The Standard Chartered Marathon at this point in time, I don't think has the facilities to give customized electrolytes to the athletes. And so when you have athletes going out of their way and making their own arrangements, we're yet to see if that will be a problem. There were images of Ibrahim Hussein, the race director, who should be in the lead car, and we'll see if there's any comments to be made afterwards about that.
Yeah, I mean, whether it is allowed in Standard Chartered or not, but even if there is allowed, it can only be given on the designated places. And I think probably, we may not labor so much about it, but probably, of course, we live for the organizers. Ours is to inform what we see. And I think, it is upon the organizers to be able to establish what exactly was that. And if it is, for example, allowed to give anyone. And I think, for the 42, as you can see, the view itself, that is Manya, where they come again. They get kind of like a flat course immediately after the uphill. Of course, in the next few minutes, they will be passing through Ngong Road, Southern Bypass Interchange. And at that period, they will have done about 26 kilometers there, and which currently they are past halfway. And I think according to the time, it looks like, as you rightly put it, Manya, it will be something like maybe 2:15, 2:16 there for the men. But of course, currently now they are done. I think what is very important, especially to our viewer there, is that these athletes, they are done with the most difficult part, which was the uphill. Of course, it's more of flat right now throughout the race. Slight, maybe immediately after the Ngong interchange, Ngong Southern Bypass interchange there, there should be maybe a slight of an uphill, but not much. But then immediately after that, it is just for them to turn back, and you will be able to experience, these guys now putting what we call free will.
Indeed, and this is now where we separate the men from the boys. We're about seven man. It's about a 7-man leading pack, with Bernard Chepkwony still in the lead pack. He's been pushing the pace since the very beginning. Silas Chesang Keitani, the tall figure that you will see at the lead, also covered 21.1 kilometers in about 1 hour and 5 minutes 27 seconds. Donald Kimaru, Wilfred Kiplagat, the Ugandan Ezekiel Kemboi Omulo, Bethwell Chemweno, and Cosmas Lagat. Those are the 7 athletes in the lead pack at this time.
Yeah, and as you can see, Manya, if you look at the pace, it decreased all the way to 3:07 per kilometer. And the reason why is because, it was a little bit of a challenge going uphill, and therefore it had already reduced. Of course, it has made the leading pack to be smaller. And of course, we will be expecting currently, at 3:07, 3:05, but definitely it's going to change any time again to come below 3 minutes.
And I was just making reference, Wilfred, to the World Athletics rules on refreshments. So when you take refreshments, when you take hydration outside of the station, the designated station, you have one chance. You will get a yellow card. But if you repeat it, then you get a red card and you're DQ'd. So far, the female athlete who made arrangements for her own hydration with the electrolyte combination that suits her might be yellow carded. So it's all good for now, as long as that mistake is not repeated.
And of course, it depends also if, for example, the organizers were, because, there is always the lead card that you see there. They're not only showing the time, but they should be able to see if there is anything that could be happening there. And I think the lead guy, if they were able to see, of course, they will do that. If they were not able to see, our talk about it here may not really be able to put any disqualification on her, because she has got to be, remember that she has got to be given a warning so that she can understand. Sometimes, again, it can be disadvantageous to an athlete who maybe didn't know that they are not supposed to pick water outside the water point. And if they do that without being warned, of course, that's something that it remains for the organizers to make a decision.
And as they say, ignorance is no defense. But indeed, this is how the 42-kilometer race is panning out. It looks like the tall figure of Silas Chesang Keitani and Bana Chepkoni are running side by side. Really, if we are to predict, even though I don't have a crystal ball, I would say that our winners are going to come from among this group, barring any disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at as you put it, Bernard, Silas, Donald, Wilfred, Ezekiel, Betwell, Cosmas, and Charles, they are all within that very short period of time when it comes to what they have been able to do right now. And I think, my belief is that, it will be difficult, of course, to mention what could easily change. But remember, because it has become kind of coming flat, of course, it will change.
Indeed, those are images, those are pictures of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon start line. The 21-kilometer race is almost underway, and that will be at 7:20 a.m. Right now, we are looking at the barrier. There's a human barrier caroling the athletes, sort of like just getting it orderly. And if you've had any experience at the start line of a marathon, it can be very, very hectic. But the good thing is that the rest of the athletes, the recreational runners, as we'll call them, are going to start 3 minutes after the elite runners. But what the security guards that you can see in the neon green are doing is ensuring that there's no interference at the start. There's no false starts or situations where you have people not really paying attention to the start command.
Yeah, because we have seen at the same time, some people, it becomes a much waste of a time. For example, if there is a false start, and especially for a marathon, and that's why you have got a human shield always that are there to make sure that there is nobody who starts a false start, and we have got to go back again and waste a lot of time, because again, marathons always people are running with time. And I think, interesting, Manya, that the women are starting to push right now from where they are. We have got 3 women. That is Ellen Chekori, Jane Mora, of course, Scholastica. Scholastica there is among the leading pack, and it looks like we are not going to have a lot of changes from here among the leading group.
And so at the 21.1 kilometer mark, which is precisely halfway, they had covered a time of 1:13:31. And I'm just going to quickly go through my pace table, my pace chart table, to be able to predict the kind of times that we're looking at. Because at 1:13:31, then it's going to be a very, very, very fast time. I'm unsure if they will slow down, which it seems likely, but maybe the conditions are actually very, very ideal. Remember that the course record that we're trying to beat is 2 hours, 24 minutes, 31 seconds.
Yeah, and, with 1:13 at halfway, Manya, remember that, the halfway mark has a lot of challenges. The second half definitely will be more of easier, and definitely it's going to be a little bit faster, I believe so. And we will be looking at a course record, maybe, because if they will have maybe about to slash about almost 2 minutes, from about a minute and a half from the first half, then I believe that they can easily be able to beat that. And that's why I said, Manya, earlier on that, the course itself and the weather itself, could give a lot of advantage, especially when it comes to anyone who is chasing good time. Because
That's indeed correct, Wilfred. With a pace, covering the halfway mark at 1:13:31, then we can predict, we can almost sort of foresee that they will be completing the marathon in about 2 hours 27 minutes, which is not the course record. That would be hard to beat because they'd have to cut about 3 minutes, seeming very, very unlikely. I mean, I'm not sure what will take place after this, but yet again, those are images of us at the start of the 21-kilometer half marathon. In about 30 seconds, there will be a flag off. What we can see is the security guards in the bright neon green caroling the rest of the athletes just to get them into position. And in a situation like that, the nerves are real. They're probably feeling very, very nervous. They want to just get out and get out well without any interference or anyone blocking them. What do you think is going on in the mind of an elite athlete at a time like this?
Yeah, thanks for such a question, Manya. Actually, I wanted to say that, that is the most difficult part. Of course, the half start. There is the start of the 21 kilometers. Both elite and the fun athletes. And Manya mentioning about, that waiting. You could have talked about 30 seconds before they start, but I can tell you that is a lot of time, especially for an elite athlete who has prepared. They know that they are supposed to start, but you don't want, once you start a race, you just want to be able to start immediately. And if you can see, Manya, the kind of pace with a half marathon, you can tell this is going to be very quick. Remember also, in terms of the weather, it is a little bit warmer now, which is something that can be very good or an advantage to most athletes. For half marathon, you don't have to have very cool temperatures the way we actually saw during the marathon, and it is an advantage. But for the half marathon, I think, these guys, they could easily, looking at how they have started, could be looking easily at making really one of the quick half marathons we have had in the country.
The women's course marathon the women's course record has been standing since about 2012. Pascalia Chepkorir ran a time of 1:08:12, 1 hour, 8 minutes, 12 seconds. And just in 2022, a bit more recently, Daniel Ebenyo ran a time of 1 hour, 50 seconds. Now that will be the time to beat. Daniel Ebenyo also just yesterday managed to become the Kenyan cross-country champion at the championships that were being held at Eldoret City at the sports club.
I think it's a shame that we don't have Ebenyo here, who has always been consistent in this race. Manya, last year he ran very well, and I think maybe this time around it came at a kind of, if I may call it, the wrong time that we had the cross country. But of course, for him, he wants to represent the country during the World Championships, and therefore, it must have been torn between running the marathon and, of course, making the team. And many of the people, of course, they will always choose to run for the team Kenya cross country that we will have next year.
And I believe just before the World Championships, back in 2022, 2023, Ebenyo announced that he is looking to get into road racing. It might not have necessarily gone according to what he had envisioned. He's been struggling a little bit, but I think maybe that's just how it is. Sometimes you struggle before you get good. He's still young and has many, many years ahead of him.
Absolutely. I mean, remember that once you go into road racing, for example, it will be difficult for you to maybe come back to the track. The only thing that can push you is for you to be able to go into marathon. And probably, maybe for Ebenyo, he realized that maybe he still wants to run the track. Of course, I mean, for him, he can still be able to do it because I've watched him over the years when it comes to track, when it comes to cross country. Of course, running cross country is an advantage. But, of course, when it comes to half marathon, you will not be able to miss someone else other than Ebenyo here today. And as you can see, the half marathon has already started. It has started very nicely, very quick. Looks like these guys, they want to push the race from the beginning. As we can see again, just like the marathon, we have a bigger group that will still be here. But I think, Manya, what is always happen is that, a race that starts very fast like this, you could easily have the spreading of the athletes. You won't have the same way that we saw in the marathon, that you have 30, 40 athletes even after 15 kilometers. But in this case, it looks like they have started a little bit quicker, and we may see something different. And they are past, I think, Manya, already past Ngong Road, intersection, and they are heading to be able to turn back from there. And it looks like in our screen, I think maybe around 5 athletes that are remaining still: Bernard, Chepkony, Silas, and of course Donald still in the lead there.
Beautiful images, beautiful aerial shots of the Ngong Forest Reserve. I believe that's where they are at this point. So taking in that fresh air right by the forest should be quite the pleasant experience so far. Those are aerial images of the 42-kilometer men lead pack, and we'll be able to tell once we get a close-up shot about what exactly is happening. But for now, just take that in. That is the essence of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, where you interact with the wildlife. So it could be the forest, it could be the national park. That is the beauty of this race that is run in solitude, but with a lot of determination.
Wow, what a scenic view there. And Manya, that is the quarry, the concrete quarry that they were talking about on the left of your screen. And I think in the next few minutes, they should be able to be turning back again on the same route, and of course coming all the way to Uhuru Garden. And this is the half marathon already now. Currently the half marathoners are going through the national park, Manya, towards Ole Sereni. And I think for them, they will not be going all the way up there, but they will turn on the same place where the marathoners turn. But of course, for them, when it comes to come and finish, they will turn back before where the marathoners have started from.
We had spoken about the emergence of other powerhouses in East Africa, including Uganda and Tanzania. The world record is held by Jacob Kiplimo, who just recently, about like a week ago or so, or 2 weeks ago, won the Chicago Marathon with a time of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. He also had, which became the 7th fastest marathon in history, but he's also the half marathon world record holder with a time of 56:42, which is pending ratification. There's been conversation about will it be ratified because he was chasing a car. Yomif Kejalcha of Ethiopia said that even he thinks he could run 56 meters if you placed a car in front of him, a car to chase. But yes, Ugandans really coming out strong. Uganda, Tanzania. It looks like all of East Africa is awake now.
And you know what I like, we talk about world record. I like what Kipchoge once said is that, world records are there to be broken. So that should be expected. It could be a Ugandan, it could be an Ethiopian today, it could be a Kenyan tomorrow, but always world records are there to be broken. And of course, we are more happy when we know that we own the world record as Kenyans, because we are the powerhouse not only in Africa but also in the world when it comes to running. And that's why, Manya, when it comes to Nairobi Standard Chartered, it's few African countries that you can see having the exact same marathon with the same enthusiasm and big numbers, large number of people who always prepare year in, year out for the last 22 years. It tells you what a country it is when it comes to athletics. And people really love athletics. And I think, especially Nairobians, Manya, they love athletics more than anything else.
That's right. There are a lot of running clubs that are a part of this marathon. If there's anything that the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon organizers do very well, almost exceptionally, the best in the country, it is engage with stakeholders. So they are well networked with running clubs like We Run Nairobi. You have the Early Bird runners. You have the Fitbeat community. That's really what it's about in Nairobi. A lot of running clubs have been mushrooming and really, really growing, which is encouraging, because when you think about the lifestyle diseases that have been on the rise, even in this country, even in parts of rural Kenya, which was previously unheard of, then this is the solution. This is the key. We need to get moving.
And I think, the theme that they call Together We Run Further, can never be explained more than in Standard Chartered, marathon, because this is where everybody comes in, for a cause. Remember, this is, the cause that this run, Manya, is Future Makers, and everybody participates in what we are making future makers. So, and I think, in our screen, Manya, that is this, should be
the Ngong Road interchange?
Ngong Road interchange, yes.
The Southern Bypass Ngong Road interchange.
Yeah, that is the view that you have right now. And ahead of that, about a kilometer or so, should be the turning point for the marathoners, and we will be able to see them as they come back. And of course, this is when you would, as you put it earlier on, separating men from the boys. You will find that, the one person who would have maybe feeling good would make a decision, because after that, if you don't make any changes, especially you come towards the end, it's going to be a photo finish. An interesting reminder, we have experienced nowadays a photo finish during the World Championships. For example, we had one of the what we call it the best or the closest photo finish even than 100 meters in a marathon after 42 kilometers. And in this case, we may also be able to experience, especially if Bernard, Silas, Donald, Wilfred will remain together. And then I think we'll also experience here in Nairobi another photo finish.
Yes, they were separated at the World Championships. Alphonse Simbu of Tanzania and German's Petros, Eritrean born though, by 0.03 of a second, which was a smaller margin than the margin for the 100-meter final men. It was very, very interesting. And you saw Alphonse Simbu just giving it all he got and really pacing himself. And that became the first global world championship medal for Tanzania. And like we said, there's a lot of awakening of sleeping giants in the region. You have Gabriel Guy of Tanzania, who has the fastest marathon time other than a Kenyan or an Ethiopian. And he's also investing millions in a training facility in Manyara, which is where he comes from, because he believes that the high altitude conditions there are also suitable for training, except that it's just never been done before.
Yeah, that is what most of the athletes, of course, they do. Once they have done well, they always want to see the others also doing well. And that's why you would find most of them, they would invest, as you rightly put it, the Tanzanian, Simbu, of course, see that, I don't want to be the only one on top there. Interesting, Manya, half marathon is really quick. This is the full marathon. As we rightly said, still 5 athletes.
And that image gives you a very clear picture of the kind of terrain they are facing. This is them going uphill after turning, and it's going to be tough at the beginning because, as you can see, even his name is, I just want to refer to that real quick, Silas Chesang Keitani, really bent forward, and he's taller, so the center of gravity works more for him. But Bana Chapkoni looking very comfortable. Maybe the uphill is his strong suit, because what you do is that you do as much as you can to get as far as you can where you are strong, and then maybe then you'll have a margin to work with.
Of course, I mean, if you are a tall athlete, you would like to have, in uphill, it is a little bit, straining for them. But of course, when it comes to downhill, the shorter athletes, most of the time, they have an advantage when they are going uphill. And I think, when it comes to the next now that will be coming, you will be able to see Chepkoech, of course, improving.
There are about 1,700 athletes still in the 42K, the recreational runners, and those were images of them dancing around with a mascot. There's been a real growth in popularity of mascots in Kenya, especially in Nairobi, and that's just the kind of energy that you would need while you're looking at 40 kilometers ahead, 35 kilometers to go.
Yeah, I think, it's something very interesting. And when we see such kind of experience, it means growth. It means the organization itself is going global stage, because that is the experiences only we see maybe probably in World Championships or football or whatever is happening out there. And I think for the first time, it could be, Manya, that we're having mascot. I don't remember if we had last year, but I think in this marathon, not so sure about it. This is the women's marathon. As you can see, already changes. And I think here is the finish of the wheelchairs. Remember that we also had wheelchairs, Manya, right?
Yes, the only marathon in Kenya that includes a wheelchair a wheelchair race. This is the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, and we'll be heading to Joshua Makori to give us interviews with the winners. And it's really very challenging when you look at this kind of wheelchair that this athlete is riding on. It is nothing like the racing wheelchairs that you find with at the World Marathon Majors. And of course, cost is the biggest barrier, quite the hindrance. You have some of these racing wheelchairs running into the millions, which, so what we have here is a typical sports wheelchair, maybe for basketball, maybe for volleyball. And that's what, sometimes you just work with what you've got. And we're handing over to Joshua Makori for an interview with the winners.
Nimekuwa vizuri, nimefurahia, nimesikia raha, nimeimprove from number 2 to number 1.
Ulifanya nini kikubwa ndio utoke namba 2 hadi 1?
Mazoezi na kujikaza na kujitia moyo pia.
Nini kinafuata sasa baada ya ushindi?
Baada ushindi,
labda kuna mashindano mengine utakwenda?
Ndio, nitaenda. Nitaendelea kucheza michezo mingine na pamoja kuendelea kukimbia Standard Chartered Marathon.
Kwa hiyo kuna michezo mingine pia unashiriki?
Ndio.
Gani hiyo?
Wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, sitting volleyball and wheelchair badminton.
Kumbe unafanya karibu yote bana. Hii ni talenti kubwa sana. Kila la heri.
Asante.
Safi kabisa. Huyo ni mshindi upande wa kinadada, kilomita 21, ikiwa ni shughuli nzito hiyo, akiwa amekamilisha mashindano haya siku ya Jumapili. Angalau kuangalia wengine kama watakuwa wanaingia, alafu nikiwapata nitakuwa nawaleta tena angani.
Cost is a prohibitive factor. So what you see there is actually an athlete running with a wheelchair that is purposed for basketball or volleyball. And the requirements for the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon are that the equipment should have 2 large wheels and up to 2 small front wheels and 1 round push rim per large wheel. A push rim is what they hold on to turn the wheels. And they run a time, I believe she raced a time of about 1 minute 34 seconds which is most interesting, because when you think about the world record held by Catherine Gibruna of Switzerland, which is 1 hour 34 minutes 16 seconds that she raced in Berlin in 2023, that was for a full marathon. But when you don't have the right equipment, you race about the same time but for the half marathon. Back to Joshua Makori for more interviews with the wheelchair racers.
Siku ambayo tayari washindi wameanza kuingia hapa ndani ya bustani ya Uhuru, makala 22 mwaka 2025, mashindano ya Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Upande wa walemavu wameisha kumaliza. Angalau niseme na mshindi hapa, niambie mawili matatu yamekuaje. Mwanzo, jina lako unaitwa nani na imekuaje leo?
Jina langu ni John Wambua, na mashindano ya leo ilikuwa ngumu sana compared na last year, but nimefurahia ushindi wa leo.
Wambua, nakumbuka mwaka jana tukiwa na wewe tena papa hapa. Ni nini umeboresha kutoka mwaka jana?
Ni mazoezi, chakula chenye nakula, na pia support from my family, and also imekuwa nikimwabudu Mungu sana ni shinde hii mashindano.
Matayarisho na maandalizi yako kabla kuja yalikuwaje?
Maandalizi nilikuwa tu nafikiria tu nitakuwa namba 2 ama 1.
Yeah. Tayari umepata 1.
Yeah. Nimechoka kabisa. Hata nashindwa kuongea. Kuendesha hii kiti cha magurudumu na mikono si rahisi. 21 km. Yeah. Na matumaini yangu ni kushiriki mashindano ya London ama New York City Marathon. Nijigeji nione venye naweza perform.
Ipo siku?
Yeah, ipo siku.
Kila la heri.
Asante.
Safi kabisa. Niseme pia na ambaye amemaliza katika nafasi ya pili, niambie pia mambo yamekwendaje. Kilomita 21 upande wa walemavu wamepambana kweli kweli. Mwanzo, jina unaitwa nani na imekuaje leo?
Okay, naitwa Dennis. Ijakuwa rahisi because the first yangu ilitokana, lakini nimengangana kabisa, nikapata some blisters, lakini tutangangana kabisa. We're going to try our best.
Nafasi ya pili Deno, unahisi vipi?
I'm happy because this is my first time. Last time I was number 4 and now I'm number 2.
Umeboresha?
Yeah. So it's a very big progress for me. Yes, I'm happy about it.
Ulikuwa umejiandaaje?
Okay, nilikuwa nimejiandaa vizuri. Ngawa kuna venye unaona miguu yetu inasumbua sometimes, unaona inatoka, lakini tumengangana tukashinda venye. Nilikuwa natarajia nambari 1, lakini nambari 2 pia ni nzuri.
Mungu alikuwa amekupangia namba ya 2, na nini kinafuata sasa?
Kufuata kutoka sasa, ama sasa tunaenda kwa doping, kuangaliwa kama tunatumia madawa, kitu kama hiyo. Yeah.
Asante, kila la heri.
Yeah, asante sana.
Huyo ni Deno ambaye anasema kwamba tayari amesharidhika na nafasi ya pili. Alitamani sana iende ikuwe ni 1, lakini ndio aliyokuwa amepangiwa. Sasa acha nisubiri tena nione nani watakuwa wameingia kama washindi. Kwa hiyo lako ni tulio lipo.
Makori Mwanaspoti telling us more about the T54, T53 athletes in the wheelchair race. T54 and 53 have to do with you have full trunk abilities, but an arm function, but you have no legs contributing to your race. Also, just a quick mention that the Christian Blind Mission provided camel bags that were used by the wheelchair racers, which enabled them to get hydration along the course with a bladder and the pipe, the straw to the mouth. You were commentating last year, and John Wambua has retained his title.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, it's always very difficult. We have not had in this race, one person that comes and defends, especially for the able-bodied races. And I think even for the wheelchair races, to come and defend is not easy. It takes, much preparation. You hear the second athlete, he came there and he knew that, he was going to win, but of course, Wambua retained the race. And I'm very happy, Manya, to hear him talking about that, he would like to have a chance to be able to run or compete in these other outside countries. I believe good well-wishers out there, they have heard about him and what his requests are. Of course, I mean, we talk about the people who come and scout talents, and I believe that, they can be able to see the time that he was able to run last year, because if there is always an improvement, given a chance to compete in a low altitude, definitely it is going to help. Now, in the 42, yes, Maya.
No, go ahead. In the 42 kilometers, we're still looking at the leaders, and just for reference, I want to look at the leaderboard. They passed 29.4 kilometers at about 1 hour 32 minutes and 15 seconds. And just like it has been from the beginning of the race, Bernard Chepkoni was leading. Silas Chesang Keitani, the tall figure who we saw having a bit of a difficult time going uphill, seems to have recovered and is now running side by side with Bernard Chepkoni. And indeed, maybe our winner, maybe our champion is going to come from this one of the two names, Bernard or Silas.
Yeah, and what has been interesting, Manya, if you look at the time currently, that they are going at per kilometer, has again gone a little bit slower. Of course, that is expected, because when you run 42 kilometers, sometimes you may not be bad. Of course, we will expect immediately when they come downhill, they will have a faster time. But currently, they are running between 309 and 310. And of course, Bernard, Silas, they have really fought together from the beginning. It looks like, it's going to be difficult for us at this point, just like any other race, to be able to pinpoint exactly who could be doing well. And of course, for the women here, currently at 1 hour 45 minutes. Of course, they are currently now in that section of Langata, where it's all about uphill climbing, where already man have turned back, and it looks like Helen is maintaining, being able to sit with her pacemaker, and really total concentration. I think what you are able to see, Manya, on Ellen Chepkorir's face is a total concentration of an athlete who has really prepared for this. And I think unless something happens, it looks like she's actually doing very well.
And Helen Chepkorir seems to have come with a very, very solid agenda. Like like we mentioned earlier, she had her electrolyte drink handed to her, meaning she came here purposeful. There's 2 million bob on the line, and it looks like at this point she'll be running, we can predict a time of about 2 hours 27 minutes. And for the men, it'll be about because like you said, Wilfred, it'll be about 2 hours, 13 minutes and 30 seconds. You said the pace is 3:09, 3:10, and that's really what we're looking at. So Moses Keegan's course record, I think, is absolutely safe, and so is Evelyn Chirchir's course record of 2 hours, 24 minutes and 31 seconds. But sometimes you don't really go to beat the course record. You go to win. This is championship style racing, except that you have paces.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, remember again, you can have good time and you finish maybe not a very good position, and you would say that the agent would always looking for who was the number one, because all the history will always talk about in the last 22 editions, we will always mention about the winners only. And that's why sometimes, coming here, it will be very important for anyone to come to prepare to come and win. Of course, 2 million shillings is not a small amount of money. And I would always say this: any top 20 athletes who are starting in Stand Chart, each one of them has expectations. Manya, they come there with only one goal, to win. But of course, we only have one winner. And in this case, looks like Helen Chepkorir, as you have put it, and still with her pacemakers, I think something that has been very interesting is that her pacemakers are actually very, very good. They know what they are doing, because what is important, Manya, and especially for our viewer out there, is that when you have personal pacemaker, what would be very important is that the rhythm, in terms of how you follow their steps, everything that they are doing, you should be able to have the same rhythmic. And as you can see, you know, for the pacemaker for Helen are almost in the same rhythm as she just follows him to make sure that, you know, she's going to remain on the same pace. And I think it's so incredible to be able to watch, and especially there, she's going to go through the shower hydration that we said, you know, is meant to cool the athlete.
That's right. Along this course, we've had a couple of mist stations just to keep the athletes cool, which is incredibly innovative and very, very necessary for the kind of temperatures that we plan to be seeing in the afternoon, and even now as the temperatures are rising. Helen Chepkorir, I was just looking her up because it looks like she made a decisive break at the 30-kilometer mark, and she has a personal best in the marathon of 2:27:59, which she ran in Firenze back in 2024. So she ran her half marathon PB of 1 hour 13 minutes 25 seconds in Sociot back in August of this year. Participated in a 15-kilometer road race in Kapsabet and ran a time of 54:52. So it looks like she's coming into her form. She's about 30 years of age, just about to turn 31 in about 25 days, born on the 30th of November. So in about a month or so, Helen Chepkorir will be turning 31 years of age. She has track experience. Back in 2016, she would run the 1,500, and that's when she ran her personal best.
Yeah, and remember that, you know, any marathoners will always tell you, the older you get, the better you can be able to run. And I think it is very good, Manya, that you mentioned about her progression, and so that, you know, at least the viewer out there can be able to understand that this lady, Helen Chepkorir, has been running this way, and this is how she has been improving. And even you can be able to show that actually she came here well prepared, knowing that, you know, I need to run a very good time. Mentioning about 2:27, Manya, I think it looks, because currently she has already passed the Ngong Road Southern Bypass interchange, of course, going probably maybe to be able to make a U-turn there. And I think she looks like, you know, she has really prepared maybe to be able to run a personal best. We wait and see. And of course, you know, for the men, currently now we have Bernard and Silas, the two remaining, as they come past somewhere along Karen, between Karen and what we call Kibra. Of course, it is still a flat course here, and looks like the two athletes have decided to remain, Bernard Chepkony and Silas Chesang Keitani.
Yes, and we're absolutely playing around with a 2:13, 2:14 time, because like we've seen that by 35 kilometers, to get a 2:14 time, they need to be at 1:51:09, which is about the time that we're looking at. Helen Chepkorir also looking very, very strong. Kamau, her pacemaker, has done a fantastic job. They really look like they have been, you know, she's been feeling good, and this was the plan all along.
Yeah, there's nothing as beautiful as being able to execute your race according to your plans. Most of the time, Manya, I would tell you that, you know, you can easily plan your race and then it doesn't work that way. But looking at, especially this time around, you know, the 42 men, the 42 women, and I would talk about the 42 women, looks like whatever Helen had planned is definitely working. She still has her two pacemakers or three pacemakers still in front, being able to shield her from any wind that would be there. Of course, we talk about the wind, which is, we talk about around 3 or maximum of 6 kilometers per hour, which is definitely very good for running. And I think for Helen, she's really improved. And I think, if you can look, Manya, and this is something that is allowed, that you can have what we call carbohydrates that you can be able to munch as you run. It's allowed, purely allowed. Of course, at the end of the day, if there is something that could not be okay, people would be able to notice. But that is something that I know most people will be like, what is that? And it is allowed.
And Chepkorir is really tackling this race like a real professional. And like we said earlier, her pacers are the ones who are going to get the water from the water stations, to open up the carton pack for her as she was just nibbling on her carbohydrate gels. This is someone who left the house knowing that today she's running for 2 million Kenya shillings. I'm just curious, and I'm not sure we have the information, but I'd like to ask what your opinion is. If she's going to run 2 million, and maybe her pacemakers will take her almost all the way, maybe to 40 kilometers or maybe to 41 point something, straight to the finish line, what do you think then should be the cut for such a pacer out of the 2 million bob?
Look, I think basically all the pacemakers have different negotiation manner with the organizers. Of course, an athlete, before they come in, they would be like, okay, I'm coming with my own pacemaker, or you are going to provide me with a pacemaker. So basically that is a negotiation between, most of the time, the pace setter themselves and the organizers, because what is 2 million is purely for Chepkorir and any other winner in the marathon. So that is different. But of course, I mean, we are all athletes. Sometimes you feel like, this person is the one that has helped me. It depends most of the time with the individual athlete, what you can be able to say, what can I do for these guys? Because I think for the first time, Manya, I've commended this race for many years. And I think this is the first time that we can see 2 pacemakers still after 35 kilometers, they are still there and really shielding her. And it looks like Helen was really ready. And I like the fact that you put it that she prepared for it.
Bernard Chepkoni is now the main lead in the men's 42-kilometer marathon. Bernard Chepkoni hasn't raced since 2022. Unfortunately, he was punished for a doping offense, and so hasn't run since 2022, and his ban came to an end early in February this year. And so it looks like he's hungry. He hasn't had the opportunity to race and have it matter. And it must be very lonely still training, but not able to get on the track, not able to get on the road and express your training.
Absolutely. I mean, you can imagine, what goes through your mind when you get banned for 2 years. Sometimes you have to make a decision either between continuing training or not training at all. And I think for a case where you see an athlete who was banned before they come back, sometimes they are like, okay, you know what? I want to come and prove to you that I can run clean. Because in any case, of course, this race is well monitored by both ADAC and WADA. I'm sure about it. So sometimes when you come back, Manya, you want to be like, okay, you know what? I know I'm going to have a test and I'm going to prove that maybe I was clean all along, or at least I've been training. Of course, there's so many other issues that athletes will be able to discuss among themselves, but I will leave it at that.
And Bernard Chepkoni is actually 38 years of age. He's going to be turning 39 in December. So he's one of the older athletes in the field. And to be able to achieve what he has achieved, I can only speculate that his motivation more than anything is that he needs the money. He has not been able to work for a very long time, since back in 2022. And these are the kind of realities. These are the things that fuel our athletes. We just hope that we can come into an era where Kenyans are known for clean sport.
Yeah, and I think, you can understand, Manya, when you win, for example, and then there was a controversy. So of course, I mean, this has become a kind of like a challenge, and that's why I said, for some of us that we didn't even know what energy drinks were and all that, we can only watch and just, maybe try to encourage athletes to always be very natural. But again, when you are back, at least, it proves that you are being doing very well. And I think, Manya, something very interesting that you have just mentioned. Both the athletes, both men and women, they are old enough.
Helen is
31. You know, which we know always for the marathon women, always after 25, 26, that is when they do very well, and it is expected.
Speaking of age, Wilfred, we've been having an issue with, say, the performance at the World Championships or the Olympics, where there's been talk about Kenyan male athletes failing to deliver, except maybe for the likes of Wanyonyi in the 800 meters or Chariot in the 1,500. Sometimes it looks very bleak and we aren't certain of the medals that we will be getting as we have been in the past. And there have been a lot of reasons that have been presented for that issue, a lot of hypotheses. The truth of the matter is that we do have very young athletes that are going to the road. What do you think is inspiring them to do this? Why so soon? Why don't they want to have a track career and then transition to the roads?
Okay, two things, Manya. There was a lot of talk, especially during the World Championships. And for once, I said, when would our women take the front seat? For me, I would say it is the high time to take front seat. There was nothing wrong about, our men. That is my opinion. But anyway.
So in your opinion, it's a seasonal thing. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why I said it is the time for our women to take the front seat. And, what is interesting even to watch Manya here, in the men's 42, if you can see Chepkonyi the way he's pushing, I mean, any athlete will tell you this is the fastest of the next. I think where the year is right now is he should be remaining with less than maybe 5-6 kilometers or even less, for him to finish. And he's still accelerating. Remember that, this is coming downhill. Of course, for the women, they haven't come back, if I'm not wrong. They have not returned. But of course, Chepkonyi, they are accelerating non-stop as he comes downhill towards Langata Road interchange and towards to Uhuru Garden.
So in your opinion, we don't have a problem when you have Kenyan athletes transitioning to the road very young? Isn't that really what is ailing us as Team Kenya at the Worlds and Olympics?
Well, of course, I mean, it is good to watch someone who is old enough, like Chepkonyi here, who is over 30 years of age, doing a marathon, rather than seeing a 21, 22-year-old athlete. Because a marathoner will tell you that, any athlete who is less than 25 years doing a marathon would be almost impossible for that athlete to run 5 or 10 years, the way we have seen other athletes running more than 10 years, because a marathon is one race that takes a toll on your body, and you don't want to be still very young. Your bones is not well developed, if I may say so. The impact that you get in running 42 kilometers is not the same as when you run cross country or when you run in the track. And therefore, when you're still very young, you may run very well, yes, but it will be for only a few years. And I think, Manya, something that is so interesting is the acceleration that Chepkonyi still has, even after 42 kilometers.
That's true. And right now, this should be Kibera area. The National Housing Corporation units are what you see on the right of picture. And so this is him in that area. It's beneficial that he will have a little bit more human company here. There's more people here, more people on the sidelines watching and observing what is transpiring at the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, full marathon for the men. So he has about, I would say, less than 2 kilometers to go. Less than 2 kilometers to go. Is that accurate, Wilfred?
Roughly there, yes. I think it should be, because once they reach southern bypass Langata Road interchange, it should be remaining less than a kilometer. And actually, I think you are right that it is less than 2 kilometers. And if that is the case, Manya, there could be a likelihood of course record going today.
So in my estimation, it should be 2 to 3 kilometers. And like I said earlier, Bernard Chepkwony is running like a man on a mission. And the most obvious mission would be he wants to get back into running, wants to earn a living, wants to yet again perform. You train for so long and then you have no opportunity to showcase that. And really, it should be a caution to other athletes that doping is very expensive. And with the kind of investment that the government of Kenya has been making, increased investment into the millions of shillings, hundreds of millions of shillings, then you will get caught because we are testing more.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we always say run clean anytime, where possible. Not even where possible. I mean, you have got no choice as a professional athlete, because it's not only your name that you are tarnishing, but the name of the country. You can imagine we were almost banned, and we wouldn't be having such kind of experiences. And I think, Manya, that's why I said, the doping issues, is something that we will, at certain point, maybe we will have to have a conversation as a country and realize that it is not an individual athlete that is affected, but the entire country, the entire event like today, Standard Chartered, that we are all experiencing, everybody who prepares for it. If a country is banned, it becomes a problem. Now, he's entering the Southern Bypass intersection with Langata, if I'm not wrong. Not yet there, but almost there, meaning he has less than 1.5 kilometers or so to be able to enter into the finish line. Of course, we will see maybe Manya near 2:10, 2:11 from where he is. Those are the national housing that you are talking about, that you can see on your right, as he comes now down towards the Langata Road.
And Bernard, it's interesting that Bernard was having a hard time moving over to the sidewalk or the side pavement because he kept wanting to run on the main road. That's very, very interesting. And this course has been designed by the race director, Ibrahim Hussein, former Boston Marathon champion. And so maybe he just felt like this is a section for the motorbikes and he didn't want to get on it. But now it looks like he's owning it. He's realizing that this is actually his way back to Uhuru Gardens. And like I said, he's running like a man who needs something at the end of today.
Yeah, actually remember that, Manya, when you also don't compete for 2 years, but you're just training, there is a big advantage that you would have compared to someone who was maybe competing not so long ago. It can play both ways, whereby if you have not really competed, there's nothing to motivate you maybe to still continue training. But of course, this is a lesson from Bernard, the way, he has been out for 2 years, but he has come here and he's not looking back. And I think what his mission here, Manya, would be maybe, I would say maybe, to go for the course record, if possible, because where he is right now, with a time of the course record is
2:10:12 by Moses Keegan, back from 2009.
Yeah, that's quite a long time. If you look at 2009 until now, is more than 15 years. And I think based on where he is, it depends on what he can be able to push, for example.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how far behind Silas Chesang Kaitani is. We don't really have our eyes on him, but for now, it's back to the woman of the hour, Helen Chepkorir. She came to this race with her pacers, 2 minimum paces, which really means that she was not joking around. At some point, you would have taken note that she was handed her electrolyte drink somewhere near Kibra as she was going on the first leg of the marathon. No, just about halfway, which is really someone who has determined that she wants optimum conditions for a very good time here today.
Yeah, and there we have both the half marathon as well going on. Just below your screens, should be the half marathoners. Same thing as half marathon for women also. Yeah, is undergoing.
And that is Kiben Jenga. Kiben Jenga is in the lead in the half marathon, as at 18.8 kilometers. Kibe had run a time of 47 minutes, 37 seconds. So Kiben Jenga with a bib 10.542 is in the lead in the men's half marathon. In the women's half marathon, we have it looks like I can't see that right now, but yes, like we said, the men's marathon has a decisive lead by Kiben Jenga, who is running alone at this point in time. On the women's half marathon side, you can see that there's still a pack of 3 within reach of each other. But there's an athlete already making a break and really going for it. We'll just be discovering what her name is as soon as the images get clear in a short while.
Yeah, and as you can see, they have been really a separation from the leaders and everyone else. Both in the 21 and a half, you would always find the leader is all by himself. As you can see on your right side of your screen, the men's are now coming in to Hurukadon, where they will be able to finish currently at 2:09.42. Looks like he may not be able to maybe go for the championship record, Manya.
Yes, indeed. And we are live on NTV. There are 4 sets of images. 4 images on your screen right now. At the top, we have the full marathon men and women leaders. At the bottom, we have the half marathon men and women leaders. We are live on NTV all the way to 1 p.m. You could stream as well on ntvkenya.co.ke and all of NTV Kenya social media pages. This is a look at the full and half marathons at the 2025 edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, which is in its 22nd edition. What's on the line for the 21-kilometer race or for the half marathon is 300,000 for first place, 200,000 for second position, and 150,000 for the third position for both men and women. And now we have images. We have images of the finish for the full marathon. Bana Chepkwony is racing for the line, and indeed he has led from start to finish. Bana Chepkwony, who has unfortunately not been able to run since 2022, has made his comeback big. He has made his comeback loud. Bana Chepkwony is our new winner of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon 2025. And right behind him, who's been trailing him the whole time, is Silas Chesang Keitani. The times are, for Bana Chepkwony, 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 1 second. That should be among the top 5 times. That is one of the top 5 times in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Bana Chepkwony giving it everything he's got. Imagine not being able to race since 2022, but still finding it within yourself to pick yourself up. You made a mistake and you've decided that you need a comeback. This is what you were meant to do, and keeping on training and ending up the champion. He has actually been very, very purposeful since the beginning of the marathon. And let's head over to Joshua Makori.
Na Bana, nimeona umeongoza kwa kipindi kirefu sana. Ilikuwa ni siri gani hii ya kuandika ushindi?
Ni mazoezi tu. Ni mazoezi kujikaza kwa training.
Ulikuwa unatarajia?
Yaani tulikuwa tunakaza kwa training, so kufika hapa zani hata mwili alikuwa amelock kidogo sana, lakini tulienda kufika mahali tumeona hiyo mwili si mbaya sana.
Na huu ushindi unamaanisha nini kwako? Samahani, huu ushindi unamaanisha nini kwako?
Kwangu kwa training. So imejua ukifanya hivi ni kitu yani unaonyesha mahali ya tumefanya mazoezi kule.
Ndio mashindano ya kwanza unashinda ama kuna mengine umeshinda?
Tumeshinda sana mengine kidogo ya.
Kama gani kubwa?
Tumekimbia Kakamega. Alafu singine tumekimbia kidogo tu.
Samani ni kuruhusu uende ukapumue kidogo. Bana, hongera sana kwa ushindi wako. Angalau pia niseme na nambari 2 ambaye ameshafika hapa. Nambari 3 aswama na keki. Kinaonyesha kibango alichonacho. Mwanzo jina lako? Ezekiel Kemboi. Imekuwaje namba 3?
Mbio haikuwa rahisi. Because umeona tumengangana. Gawaje kutoka 640 hapo to 7 wata huko Ngong Road. Side ile nyingine imekuwa ngumu sana. Hali ya hewa imekuwa juu. So tumengangana tu. Tunashukuru Mungu kwa siku ya leo. Hakika singeweza kusema ningefika mahali nilipo. Maana nimeshukuru sana.
Ulikuwa unatarajia kumaliza ndani ya 3 bora?
Sikuwa natarajia. Nilikuwa nimesikia mguu kidogo. Ilikuwa imenisumbua. Ndio nikasema wacha ningangane kidogo.
Kama ulipata jeraha?
Nilikuwa na maumivu nikikuja. So nilikuwa nimesema tu aje nijaribu kidogo. Yeah.
Nini kinafuata sasa baada ya kumaliza hii ya stand chart?
Baada ya kumaliza sasa hii naenda kutrain. Nione marathon haitaki haraka. At least mwezi wa 2 nitakuwa sawa. Ndaenda kuongea na manager tuone vile tutafanya. Yeah.
Angalia, unaitwa jina sawa na Ezekiel Kemboi aliyetesa sana katika riadha mita 3000 kuruka viunzi na maji. Labda kuna asili ama masomo wako tu?
Hakuna asili yote, lakini kazi ni moja. Pia ningependa kushukuru juu tunashare jina moja. Kwa suta sawa. Ningependa kuika hiyo mwenendo wake hiyo.
Kama role model wako?
Juu ametesa sana.
Kila laheri.
Sawa. Hata mimi nafurahi kuona siku ya leo. Nakufuatilia sana.
Asante. Huyo ni Ezekiel Kemboi amemaliza katika nafasi ya 3 kabisa, na kwa wepesi niseme na katibu mkuu. Katibu mkuu pia naona ameshamaliza. Mwanzo Elijah, umekimbia, imekuwaje?
Nashukuru, mimi nimekimbia kidogo tu, nagojea ile yangu ya 10 kilometers which will be coming at a later time, but I'm here to congratulate the winners. You have seen we have new winners for this edition, and it means that we have produced new winners in these editions for Nairobi Marathon, and we expect that going forward they should be representing us in the future editions of Marathon. So I'm here to participate, but also to represent the government with my colleague here for trade, and of course to join the Standard Chartered because they have done a very good job within this year organization, of course.
And that is fantastic to hear from Bernard Chepkwony, the winner of the full marathon, running a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes, 1 second. In second position was Alex Chepkwik Saiko. And in third position, we heard Ezekiel Kemboi speaking, but this is Ezekiel Kemboi Omulo. He looked like he was really, really very spent, but consolation of 500,000 doesn't seem too bad. Wilfred, you were mentioning that Bernard Chepkwony was smiling all through.
Yeah, I think, it was interesting to be able to see someone still being able to smile after 42 kilometers. And I think, I wanted to say, hey, Joshua, just give these guys a little bit time to breathe, because, of course, I understand always what is important, when you get an athlete before they finish. But I think sometimes, it tells you that different preparation for these athletes. One, cannot be able to talk continuously, and someone else is smiling there,
They've been very, very interesting conversations about having athlete interviews, even on the track in the mixed zone, as soon as they've run a race. And we know that in other sports, say like tennis or golf, the contract states that you must do media. And sometimes in athletics, you have athletes walking past the journalists. So I think it's always good to get first-hand, immediate responses from the winners. They will breathe later as they go to anti-doping.
Absolutely. And I think what Joshua just did was really very good. Now, this is 21 kilometers. As you can see, one athlete has remained in front and pushing. He has actually pushed from almost halfway, Manya.
Yes, and while we were away dealing with the 42K, Joshua Kivuku seems to have come and taken the place of Kibenjenga. Kibenjenga had been leading for most of the way, but now it is Joshua Kivuku in the lead of the 21-kilometer men.
Yeah, Joshua there, and looks like he's pushing. And something that has been very interesting, Manya, and I think all of us, we will be able to talk about this race, is that for every winner in this competition has given the second position quite a distance. Always they remain alone and still being able to push, as we can see with Joshua Kivuku here.
Indeed, Joshua Kivuku is about 19 years of age. He's not yet 20, and these are the athletes that we've been speaking of. But of course, we know that there's a bit more money, say, on the road versus the track, and that could be part of the motivation to get onto the road so soon. But a half marathon isn't too bad, and he's run 2 half marathons this year with a time and achieved a time of 1 hour, 1 minute 41 seconds, 1 hour, 1 minute 24 seconds, and that was in Berlin and Mainz. So this is an athlete that has experience. He has run internationally as well, and just in 2024 in Kaptagat, which is a very, very tough race to run. In Kaptagat, he ran a half marathon, which is his personal best, in a time of 1 hour 12 seconds. Is he going to lower that today? I don't know. Joshua Kivuku, 19 years of age, looking like he is just getting warm in 2025.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Manya, that most of these athletes, the 10,000 meter runner in the track, for example, would be pushed to run the either half marathon or sometimes full marathon, because there are few races when it comes to 5,000 and 10,000 that you would say it's quite enough for you to be able to call it a career that can give you actually a living. And that's why, you would find these athletes, they will choose, for example, to run this. And I think something that we would be able to see, Manya, is what distance has Joshua put to the second person. Same thing with Helen here, still pushing now as she comes towards the track to finish. Just coming towards the finish. She should be able to be done in the next less than a kilometer from where she is, together still with his pacemaker. One pacemaker has remained. We still have also wheelchairs coming in here, guys that have done the last 21 kilometers.
And indeed, those are images of Uhuru Gardens as the half marathon men are making a sprint for the finish. Joshua Kivuku is currently the leader in the half marathon. Joshua Kivuku, who's run in Berlin and Mainz this year, about 1 hour 50 seconds is his personal best. 1 hour 22 seconds is his personal best that he went in Kaptagat back in 2024. He's traveled to Berlin, came 9th. He's traveled to Mainz, came 3rd, still in the half marathon. Joshua Kivuku in the lead, making his way soon into Uhuru Gardens. And he doesn't look like he has any competition from behind him. It looks like a very, very decisive lead by Joshua Kivuku at this time. Hopefully, if we get images from the back, we'll see where Kibenjenga ended up. Joshua Kivuku signaling. He's appreciating the cheers from the crowd at Uhuru Gardens. Looking very, very confident, sure of himself. This is time for Joshua Kivuku to turn into Uhuru Gardens. And now the finish line is right in his sight. Joshua Kivuku making his way to the finish line. First time champion in the half marathon of the 22nd edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Joshua Kivuku with that last turn, now making his way to the finish. Joshua Kivuku is our new champion in 2025.
Yeah, and as you can see, Manya, it's interesting that, Joshua just felt, even from the beginning, that he broke away from everybody, that he really had a lot of power. And I think you can be able to see as he finishes, as he comes towards the finish line, you know, he's showing that I'm still very strong. You know, he had his fist up, and it tells you he came here prepared, and that is why.
It sure feels good to win. Joshua Kithuku has managed a time of 1 hour, 2 minutes and 35 seconds. The course record by Ebenyo is safe. The course record by Daniel Ebenyo is safe. Daniel Ebenyo, who you might know, was a Kenyan cross-country champion yesterday at the Eldoret Sports Club. Those are images of Joshua Kithuku, and I'm sure we are just about to go to Joshua Makori for an interview. Let's find out how Joshua Kithuku found the race.
Naitwa Joshua Kithuku. Yeah.
Imekuwaje mbio yote?
Imekuwa sawa. Tumeng'ang'ana. Mungu ametuwezesha, tumemaliza salama.
Kwa unatarajia namba 1?
Sikuwa natarajia, but nikaona aje tu niangalie kama nitachukua namba 1.
Yeye kajipa.
Na hiyo Mungu akanipatia.
Mazoezi yalikuwaje kabla kuja?
Mazoezi imekuwa sawa. After 3 months nimekuwa nikijipangia hii race. Ya nilikuwa naomba Mungu tu anisaidie niweze kupata nafasi, niangalie kama nitaenda ng'ambo.
Nini kinafuata sasa?
Next naanza kujipangia mahali tu Mungu popote amenipangia ndipo nitaenda.
Mungu akujalie.
Amen.
Mshindi wa kilomita 21 huyo tayari ameng'aa upande wa wanaume, makala ya mwaka 2025, makala ya 22 haya haswa. Nasubiri tena wengine waingie, alafu mimi kazi yangu ni kuweka hewani moja kwa moja, lakini kwa wakati huo anaingia nambari 3 hapa kwa haraka upesi niseme naye. Ndugu yangu, jina unaitwa nani na imekuwaje?
Kwa majina naitwa Gilbert Korir. Race haikuwa mbaya. Nimeng'ang'ana mpaka nimechukua namba 3.
Korir, ulikuwa unatarajia kumaliza nafasi ya 3 aswa?
Sikuwa natarajia, but nilikuwa nimefanya mazoezi ya kutosha. So ni Mungu tu.
Unafanyia mazoezi wapi?
Nafanyia mazoezi Kapkitony, pande wa Elgeyo Marakwet. Yeah.
Na labda kuna mbio zingine umeshiriki ama ni hii ndio ya kwanza labda?
Kwa hii mwaka hii ni mara yangu ya kwanza. Nilikuwa na injury mwezi wa 3, ikapona mwezi wa 5 hapo. Ndio sasa nikarejea kwa mazoezi. Yeah.
Yani kutoka katika jeraha alafu uje umalize nafasi ya 3 ni kazi ya ziada hii, na ni Mungu kweli?
Ni Mungu tu. Ni Mungu.
Nini kinafuata sasa?
Kwa saa hii naenda kuendelea na mazoezi, alafu tutaongea na makoches. Yeah.
Kila la heri.
Asante.
Kabisa. Nambari 2 ameshafika tena mahali nilipo, angalau pia niseme naye. Jina unaitwa nani ndugu yangu, na nafasi ya 2 umeridhika nayo?
Ndio. Mimi naitwa Nation Kipsa. So number 2 naona iko sawa. Though nimereduce kwa time, but naona iko sawa. Ilikuwa the land is very ill, so sikuweza kuweka time nilikuwa nayo.
Yani imekusumbua sana, hujaweka muda ambao ulikadiria?
Imekuwa ngumu. Lakini simba, I've tried and I congratulate myself. So nataka nishukuru hata race organizers, my coaches and my training mate, nataka niwashukuru because kama ingekuwa singefikisha hiyo, because it was tough, singeweza kufikia. Yeah, so sidani sina mingi.
Mara ya kwanza ndani ya Stanchat?
Yeah.
Mara ya kwanza tena ndio hiyo nafasi yako muhimu ya 2. Nini kinafuata sasa? Kuna mengine unakwenda?
Yeah. I have some races. Yeah.
Kila la heri.
Thank you.
Kabisa.
Come baba. Hapa tutumalize bingo. Yes.
Zade.
Chep Korir, at 30 years of age, is about to make history by becoming the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon full marathon champion in the year 2025. Back in 2016, Helen Chep Korir ran a marathon in a time of 2 hours 55 minutes. So she's come a very, very long way and is now, for the first time, taking the title in any marathon that she's participated in. And I'm sure with time we'll get images of Helen Chep Korir having made it to the finish line And we were curious about the time that she would have achieved. And now we can confirm that Helen Chepkorir is the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon champion, with her time yet to be uploaded. But yes, indeed, she's ran very decisively from the very beginning, and it was her turn. It was simply her turn. Earlier on in the marathon that she ran, the half marathon, the full marathon that she ran in Nairobi back in September, she was 6th place, and that should be the Nairobi City Marathon. And in Firenze, she was 3rd place. But today is Helen Chepkorir's day, because she finally has become the champion of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon.
Yeah, there on your screen is Helen Chepkorir, just the winner of Standard Chartered 2025, taken by officials. Of course, we hope that we will be able to hear from her how the race went, and I think, yes, she is coming, and we will hand back over to Yoshua Makori.
Mbele, mwanzo unaitwa nani na imekuwaje?
Mimi naitwa Helen Chepkorir. Mbio haijakuwa rahisi, lakini tumeng'ang'ana. Nafurahi nimekuwa mshindi.
Helen, nimekuona umeongoza kwa kipindi kirefu sana. Siri ilikuwa gani?
Siri ilikuwa tulifuata pacemaker na tuka maintain the pace mpaka mahali watu wako wanasonga, nikajiamini tu.
Unatarajia hii?
Ndio.
Maandalizi yako yalikuwa kabambe?
Ya, nilikuwa nimejiandaa vizuri.
Nini kinafuata sasa?
Kinachofuata sijajua, sababu tumefunga season, tunatarajia mwaka ujayo.
Alafu pia naangalia huu ushindi unakuja pia na mihela.
Ndio, nimefurahi. I'm happy.
Hawa waandalizi utawaambia nini wa Standard Chartered?
I'm telling the organizers we are grateful. The preparation was good. Everything was good and we are happy. I'm telling them to continue to supporting us this way, and we will continue working hard, and I'll be happy to come back also.
Mara ya kwanza unashiriki Standard Chartered?
Yeah, ndio.
Mara ya kwanza na ushindi tena?
Ndio, nimefurahi sana.
Kila laheri.
Thank you.
Asante. Nambari 2 ndio huyo anaingia, kilomita zikiwa ni 42, akiwa Helen tayari ameshakamilisha na ameshinda. Ameshiriki kwa mara ya kwanza kabisa katika historia makala haya ya 22 ambayo jua limewaka, hali ya anga ni shwari kabisa, wakiwa wameanza majira ya mapema asubuhi, na kwa sasa ikiwa ndo saa 2 na dakika 30. Namuona mshindi mwingine anaishaingia hapa. Tayari ni nambari 3 huyo upande wa kinadada, naye niseme naye mawili matatu. Mwanzo, hongera sana kumaliza katika nafasi ya 3. Jina unaitwa nani na imekwaje?
Kwa majina naitwa Scholastica Chepkemboi. Race haikuwa mbaya. It was tough but I managed the position 3.
Skola, hali ya anga imekutatiza ama imekupendelea?
Haikuwa mbaya sana. Imenifeva kiasi. Yeah.
Nafasi ya 3 umeridhika nayo?
Yeah, nimeridhika nayo. Yeah. I'm happy by the way.
Maandalizi yalikuwaje?
Haikuwa mbaya sana. Yeah.
Unafanyia wapi?
Na train Kapsabet. Climate hapa na Kapsabet si mbaya sana, karibu na iko sawa. Yeah.
Nani unamwangalia kama role model katika mashindano ya masafa marefu?
Kwa masafa marefu kwa Kenya, ninaona ni Peres Chepchirchir. Yeah.
Kwa nini yeye?
Yeah, anajua kuvumilia kwa marathon na she's a role model by the way.
Vile umevumilia hadi mwisho?
Yeah, nimevumilia. Haikuwa rahisi.
Mara ya kwanza Standard Chartered?
Yeah, it's my first time.
Mara ya kwanza tena umeingia hapa kwenye jukwaa nafasi ya 3. Unahisi vipi?
Niko na furaha sana. Sikuwa natarajia hata nikimbia under 230, lakini nashukuru Mungu.
Huwa unakimbia marathon peke yake ama kuna mengine tena?
Huwa nakimbia road races. This is my first time kukimbia marathon.
Mara ya kwanza marathon kilomita 42?
Yeah.
Ndoto ni gani katika marathon?
Ndoto yangu nataka niseme marathon huwezi jua, lakini na tarajia mazuri mbeleni.
Naamini ipo siku utaipeperusha bendera ya Jamhuri katika mashindano makubwa, tuseme labda Olimpiki, mashindano ya dunia.
Yeah, niko na imani. One day I'll make it. Yeah.
Kila laheri.
Asante.
That's right. We have a new champion in the 21-kilometer men, the 42-kilometer men, and the 42-kilometer women. And when you look at those athletes that were being interviewed by Mwanaspoti mwenyewe Joshua Makori, all I can tell you is that they are 2 million bob richer or 300,000 bob richer, which is really why we run. This is how they earn a living.
And I think what has been very interesting, especially listening to the interview, Manya, is that for these athletes, most of them, it's the first time that they came to Standard Chartered. How many athletes would tell you that, you know, they have been there?
That's right. And now we're looking at Karen Wainaina, who is in the lead of the 21-kilometer group for women. Karen Wainaina now making her way into Uhuru Gardens. And we're just about to see images of her. Karen Wainaina, now at the last turn, heading towards the finish. This is going to be our new champion for the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon half marathon race in the women's category. Karen Wainaina. I'm yet to set my eyes on her, but I'm sure it's coming soon. There we go. That's our new champion for the 2025 edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. I just want to confirm what the bib number is. Wilfred, do you have eyes on the bib number?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a distance that we can't be able to see, but yeah, of course, that is the winner.
Yeah, it actually might not be Karen Wainaina. It's Frida Remoy, if my eyes serve me correctly. Because bib 2001 is Frida Remoy.
Yeah, and that should be, yes, should be Frida. Is the winner of the 21 kilometers 2025 Stanchart.
Or maybe Karen Wainaina actually passed the tape before we got images of her passing the tape, because it says here that Karen Wainaina finished with a time of 1 hour, 10 minutes and 40 seconds, and Frida Remoy in second position, coming in with a time of 1 hour, 14 minutes and 23 seconds. So it's likely that 4 minutes had passed, and we didn't see that as such as we were getting interviews from the mix zone.
Yeah, and I think we should be able to get you the correct information on that, but according to the results, that should be Frida.
Haikuwa rahisi, lakini nilijaribu. The course si rahisi.
Ugumu umekuwa wapi haswa katika kilomita zote 21?
Katika almost 10 kilometer ilikuwa very hard. Yeah.
Ulikuwa unaipangia labda leo unaibuka mshindi?
Sikuwa najipangia, but mazoezi haikuwa mbaya sana.
Unafanyia mazoezi yako wapi?
Nafanya iten. Yeah.
Tena mahali kuzuri?
Yeah.
Ni mara ya kwanza Stanchart?
Yeah, ni mara ya kwanza.
Mara ya kwanza tena nafasi ya kwanza?
Yeah.
Unahisi vipi?
Vizuri sana.
Nini kinafuata sasa kutoka hapa, labda Stanchart imekuisha? Hiyo ingine?
Yeah, nitaenda kujipanga, sijajua race ya pili, but nitaenda kufanya mazoezi kalau nione next race itakuwa wapi.
Alafu ushindi pia unakuja na hela.
Yeah, ni mzuri vile. Yeah.
Kila laheri.
Asante.
Kabisa. Niseme pia na nafasi ya pili akiwa amepambana kweli kweli. Jino naitwa nani na hasa kilomita zote 21 zimekwaje?
Okay, my first, I thank God because they give me a strength, and 21 kilometers is not an easy, since I translate from 800 to 1500, so I thank God. I see a lot of improvements.
Kwani unahama kabisa kuingia masafa marefu?
Yeah, maybe I can just try to get another 21 so that I can translate to full marathon. So I pray God to give me an health and energy so that I can just get an improvement.
Katika mita 800 na 1500, maisha yamekuaje kule?
Okay, since I start me 800 and 1500, maisha haikuwa rahisi. It was hard, but in 800 I have a BP for 158 and 1500 I have a BP for 358. And now I thank God of this half marathon for standard. I thank God. I don't have much to say, but I thank all Shabik. They just come and cheer on us. And again, I thank to my families. I thank to coaches. They give a lot of training. And again, I thank my train mates. Sheila, they just give me motivation. You know, I know you know Sheila Chepkrui. We train with her, and they give me a motivation.
Waandalizi wa haya mashindano Stanchat pamoja na NTV kupeperusha moja kwa moja, watu wamekuona ukitamba. Utamwambia nini?
Naambia mashabiki nashukuru sana kwa sababu wamekuja kucheer us, and I lack something to say, but I thank God only.
Ndoto ni gani katika mbio za kilomita 21 na labda kilomita 42 siku moja?
Okay, I could to sit with my coaches so that they can give me a motivation to translate to full marathons. Yeah.
Kila la heri.
Thank you.
Asante. Semena nafasi ya 3 hapa mwanzo. Jina lako unaitwa nani?
Naitwa Karen Jeruto.
Karen, imekwaje?
Hey, kwa tough kidogo because ilikuwa first half ya bado sijakimbia ndio ya kwanza.
Hii ni ya kwanza na imekuwa nafasi ya 3 kwenye changamoto nzito. Una miaka mingapi?
23.
Naona maisha yako mazuri upande wa riadha miaka inayokuja.
Naona itakuwa sawa.
Bado utakimbia marathon kabisa ama kuna zingine unakimbia?
Bado kwa sasa.
Unafanyia mazoezi wapi?
Iten.
Nani huo unamwangalia kama role model katika mbio?
Kina Obir. Yeah.
Ellen Obiri ametesa sana ndani ya uwanja kabla kuelekea katika marathon. Kwa nini Obiri?
Napenda vile yani huwa anani motivate.
Kila la heri.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and now we can confirm that indeed Karen Wainaina is the champion in the 21 kilometers. She ran a time of 1 hour, 10 minutes, 40 seconds. We saw Mwanaspoti interview Winnie Chebet. Winnie Chebet is a familiar face in the circuit. She actually would run 800 and 1,500 meters. Even this year, was likely doing some speed work at some of the Athletics Kenya meets across the weekends. How easy is it for an athlete to transition, being an 800-meter athlete yourself, from 800 and the 1,500, which is just middle distance, all the way to half marathon? And like she said, she aspires to now move on to do one more half marathon and then move on to the full marathon. Why wasn't that your experience, Bungei?
Yeah, it was interesting actually listening to Winnie there, mentioning that she has 158 in the 800 meters, which is actually very quick, with 358 also for 1,500 meters. It means she's very good. And I think she's the kind of an athlete that I would say well-rounded, because you cannot be able to do that if you're just a normal athlete. And I think give it to her. Of course, she's still very young. I don't understand why, anyone would be, but of course, it depends with the coaches what they have been able to see in her, so that she's being pushed with a very good time of 158 in 800. Could easily be a very good athlete who could do well in 1,500 meters. But of course, that is upon the coaches to make decision. And I think something that was very interesting, Manya, as we listened there to the interviews, most of the today's winners, they came here for the first time. They were not expecting, some of them was expecting to win, some of them were not. And I think I like the winner of the marathon, that is Helen. I love the confidence in her that she just mentioned and said, you know what, I came here, I knew that I was going to win. And as we were talking about it, Manya, you just say it looks like she came here for nothing else other than to win the race. And that is exactly what she said.
Absolutely, and we have a bunch of new winners. These are images of the 10-kilometer race, which was purposed to be flagged off at 9 a.m. So we might have a bit of time. I'm not sure if they'll be flagging it off a little earlier, but those images on your screen right now are the 10-kilometer athletes being caroled by the security personnel in the bright neon green. Looking forward to starting the race at about 9 a.m. They definitely are revving and ready to go, but it'll likely start in the next 17 minutes or so. Back just to mention the actual winners, the official winners, as we wait for confirmation, but the official winners from the timing system that we have been availed say that the 21-kilometer women race was won by Karen Wainaina. Unfortunately, we did not get an interview of her, but we got to hear Monasputi speaking to Frida Remroy and Winnie Chebet as well, the 34-year athlete who's transitioned from the 800 meters to the 1,500 meters. And for the 21-kilometer men, in first position was Joshua Kithuku. And walking away 200,000 richer is Neheshan Kipsang in second position, and Gilbert Korir, who's also walking away with 150,000, a pretty sum, in third position. Our 42-kilometer marathon winners, the full marathon winners, if we could go through them just one more time. Bernard Chapkoni, who hasn't ran since 2022, made his comeback at the Nairobi Standard Chartered Marathon, filing the 9th fastest time of all. That is the 8th or 9th fastest course time by Bernard Chepkoni, coming back with a bang, a man on a mission, a man who wants to eat. In second position was Alex Chepkwik Saikwo, who walked away 1 million bob richer. And in third position was Ezekiel Kimboi Omulo. For the women's full marathon, our champion, very decisively leading from almost like midway, halfway, was Helen Chepkorir, who had her paces, Kamau. And yes, as we can see, the 10-kilometer race has begun 15 minutes earlier than was stated. And maybe it's just, things are on schedule. The program is running as it should. And this is where you find the bulk of the recreation runners. A lot of them, like we were mentioning, there's been a lot of mushrooming of running clubs in Nairobi. And here represented, I believe we have a contingent from the Early Birds Running Club, We Run Nairobi, Kikuyu Reborn, Fitbit Inc. Maybe, Wilfred, it's time for you to also join a running club. I saw you running at the at the World Championships in Tokyo, and you had good form, by the way, but the times were not quite what we are used to.
Well, I can tell you it was not actually a good experience the other day when I tried to run 800 meters in Tokyo during the World Championships. But I can tell you that, the Nairobians actually, as you have just put it, look at the sheer numbers that were there in the 21 kilometers when they were starting. Look at the 10 kilometers, how many Nairobians and most Kenyans and East Africans who have come here. I remember last year, Manya, there was over 60 countries that was represented. I think we will be, before we end this program today, we should be able to understand how many countries were represented, for example. And as you can see, this is the 10 kilometers. Of course, notable names to be able to, maybe we will be able to see them ahead. As the elite athletes, of course, we have John Kimboi, we have Samuel Kimani Kiroko, we have got Philip Mburu, Festus Kiprop, Meshak Tor, Joel Kipkoech, Alfred Kimani, Shadrach Mushoka, all in the start of the 10 kilometers. And in the women's, we have the likes of Esther Waithira, Mercy Simiyu, and I believe Mercy has been one of the top athletes that have been running here. Of course, he's starting in the 10 kilometers as well. Purity Chelagat, Millicent Chameli, Brunella Kutol, Rebecca Cherono are among the elite of the 10 kilometers. And of course, we have everyone else who has come here to be able to run these 10 kilometers.
Indeed, and from the pictures, it's like the line doesn't stop. There's still so many runners coming through. And really what we're witnessing is about 13,000 runners in the 10-kilometer. To be exact, it's 12,893 runners. Most of them recreational runners, but we know that we'll see some good times in the 10-kilometer road race as expected. But 12,893 Nairobians, and maybe even people from other satellite towns. Like we know that the Standard Chartered Marathon held a satellite race in Mombasa just a few weeks ago, or about a week ago. So this is the face of recreational running in Nairobi. Nairobians know that Kenya is a powerhouse when it comes to athletics, and they want to be counted, choosing to run for the Future Makers Initiative as well, so as to make a difference, as well as to run for their health. We spoke about the Future Makers Initiative, and it's a program where you find people being mentored, especially the youth, young women, and people with disability. And in the past, we've had a lot of the money